Cool. So this is our informal chat for WWDC 23. So I don't have any particular fixed agenda. When we've done this in the past, I've typically had a few notes from things that have jumped out at me at sessions, and we just start by going around and getting people's impressions and hearing what we each found interesting and what things we think would be significant. Could also be interesting to go back and look at 2022, because I always think it's interesting to see which things gained traction or I felt like impacted me from the last year, because I think I'm not particularly good at predicting that stuff. So why don't we just go around and see what your initial impressions of WWDC were and what excitement, if any, you had.
Yeah. Look, I guess I can start if you want.
Go, Jason.
Yeah, obviously, I think the big highlight, in particular for me, was the new VR AR headset that they're sort of looking at bringing out.
Vision Pro.
Yeah, Vision Pro.
Yes.
That is interesting. I think it's still very much on a very expensive point, and without...
5K over here.
Yeah, it's just sort of crazy. But and without any sort of like direct software that's going to help assist it, I don't know how much it's going to take off personally. But I think it is a really cool concept, and I think, you know, if it wasn't so expensive, or maybe if there was a bit more support for some app development or something along the lines, it might actually be a bit better in my eyes. But I really like the idea behind it. Having AR accessible to people is going to be quite important in the future, I think. And I think in industry, that kind of thing could be really useful. I'm a little concerned about how everybody's eyes are going to go, though, if we're all walking around with those on our faces, 24/7. But yeah, in terms of in general, I think it's a cool concept. Just, I don't know if the technology's there yet, personally.
I mean, I guess the saving grace is the fact it's got a 2-hour battery life. So we're not going to be wearing it all day unless we've got a backpack full of batteries, a la Pokemon Go times.
Yeah, which I've done that before.
A quick question. Is it wired or is it unwired? I'm just confused.
It's wireless.
It's wireless. Okay.
So it's kind of tricky. So it doesn't have the actual Vision headset itself. Basically has a MacBook inside of it. It's got an M1 processor inside the headset itself. Yeah. But it does actually have a wire that goes down to a battery bank in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be where the 2-hour battery. So you need to have the battery pack for that, by the look of it. Again, I need to go back and look over it, but that seems to be the case. I was going to say that was...
If you're going to use it at a desk, that you just have it plugged in. So it also has direct... Oh, sorry, Josh.
No, that's fine. That was the Vision Pro was what I was going to say for the main thing as the highlight as well. I don't think many people are going to buy it. It very much seems like a Halo product coming from Apple. Where I think it is obviously going to have a lot of potential is getting that sort of technology and feature set to researchers to actually see where the technology can actually be taken.
Yeah.
It's like the HoloLens. The HoloLens is so expensive. It's not something that's for people that like unless you're very, very rich and have a lot of money to throw around on not pointless things that will provide minimal value. I think it's more going to see its use in research more than anything else at the moment.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that.
I had similar feelings to it. It's definitely not at a sort of commodity hardware price range, right? It's but then I've also been surprised at how much people will stretch to the cost of $2,000 phones or $700 watches. So I wonder if more and more people who do have that income are able to explain away their need for it.
I
so
feel
it's
like...
interesting because The most compelling, I mean, look, I'm not a gamer, first thing. So I don't have any real experience with VR headsets other than a little bit through our research group. But one of the compelling aspects for me was having a large screen to work on the go, right? So this idea that it acts as a 4K monitor where you put the headset on and you travel with a small laptop with a small screen, but then you can use it as your computer's display and have a sort of 4K monitor if you're sitting in a coffee shop at a train station or something like. And that's interesting to me, but also the price point. Do we know the price for Australian dollars? It's like about $4,500.
It's going to be 4,500 to 5,000, I
Yeah.
think, based on what they've shown.
Yes.
Like-
So they said that the starting price in US is 3,499. So it should shoot up to 5K. 4.5 to 5K. Yeah.
Yeah, not discounting the fact that they always add an additional Australia tax on top of the actual the conversion rate as well.
Right. I mean, like, okay, so unless you're buying an Apple display, most displays are not costing you anywhere near that. And who knows if you're paying extra for battery packs and stuff. So I thought that's an interesting use case, but for the cost that's associated with it, it seems very high.
Yeah, for only 2 hours.
Also,
Yeah,
they've
that's-
added the sorry, Josh. Yeah.
No, you go.
Yeah, so also they've added this prescription thing for the glass wearers. So that also interests me, like how they're gonna add that and how the cost gonna shot up for due to that as well.
And that's the other thing as well, because with VR headsets, not all of them, but most of them, you can wear your glasses underneath them. But with the Vision Pro, it looks like you can't, and you need to re-buy your prescription specifically for the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, Sunny. And my guess is the reason for it is all of the sort of eye tracking stuff they've done. I mean, I think that is, to me, what's really interesting about this as a product is the hand skeleton model, the gesture-based interaction and the eye-based interaction, which, I mean, there have been VR headsets that do eye tracking, but I hadn't seen really compelling use of this where it works super well all the time. And what I do have trust in Apple with is that if they're going to release a product that where the interaction technique is based on that, it's probably going to be pretty solid. I mean, like I've used early attempts at this, our research group took things like Leap motion controllers and stuck them to headsets and tried to do this years ago. I'm kind of interested to see if you've got all of the technology and cameras and sensors that they pack into this thing, how well you can actually do this. So I don't think we can answer that till we can try it for ourselves, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know what I'm thinking about, Josh? The sign language interpreter. Like, imagine how that could actually go if you can use technology to do that. And yeah, there could be some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are great opportunities for communication with it, aren't there? If you start thinking about some of those sort of things, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the fact that you've got the pass-through, you could have sign language. So it's got microphones on it, so you could listen and then do the signs and actually show the signs based on that. Obviously, translation between languages is another thing that you could do there as well. Actually showing real life subtitles for when people are talking. And that's not even necessarily for people for different languages. Like my mum has hearing issues, so she has hearing aids, but her hearing loss is quite severe. And being able to have subtitles like that would be very, very beneficial for her.
Yeah. I think the accessibility of this technology could be really, really powerful. And again, like if you sort of think like, the price of some of these other things, like, hearing aids or anything else, buying
Don't get me started on hearing aid prices.
I know, right? But buying glasses that are going to allow you to have subtitles or things like that could be just as good, especially if you can't actually get hearing or anything else repaired.
Yeah.
In terms of app support, how do you reckon like there would be a lot of apps before it comes out next year? Like, because
by the sound of it, there are going to be development kits that get sent out prior.
Yeah, the development kit is out actually.
Okay.
Yeah, the software one is, and then they're not like what they've done with past hardware in the past is they've often allowed developers at very low cost to get access to hardware. This is obviously the most expensive product they've done. Like
something
this,
tells me
and
it won't be low cost
I don't
for
think
developers.
they're not doing it at scale exactly. So what's happening, it seems, is they're setting up these locations. I think they said they had 6 locations around the world.
Yeah.
The closest one to us, I think, is Tokyo, where they'll kind of run them like an Apple center or lab where you could go along, load your software onto it, try it out. But I mean, that's pretty tough to develop something really novel. If what you're talking about is taking an existing app and, I don't know, modifying various views to add depth to them or take a 3D model and show that alongside, fine. But if you've got to create something that really utilizes it, it'd be hard to do that without having the physical hardware, I think.
And I was going to say, it's not like they can rely on existing VR headsets either, because none of them are compatible with Apple at the moment. Like, none of the, like, Oculus doesn't, Vive, it's the other one, Oculus and Vive are the 2 big ones. The Index, none of those work with Mac-based machines.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like, if you could, that'd solve one of the issues, because at least some of those do have the video pass-through, even if it's not very good. You could at least start to simulate what the Vision Pro can do, tethered to your computer, but
But
I
I
don't-
think Vision Pro is more than those 2 things. So I think
it is.
those 2 are more on the VR side, but Vision Pro, if you see, is more on the AR side. If you think
It is.
that's
It's more to the augmented reality side on the mixed reality spectrum. I know, but what I'm saying is, for testing purposes, if you at least had those other like the VR headsets, you could start to test it much more easy. But I don't. Look, there'll be apps for it, sure, because I have a feeling that whilst they're going to have these centers probably closer to release, they will probably start releasing developer kits as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's going to be many apps on launch.
I think, if I remember correctly, they have collaborated with Disney, Walt Disney as well, right? For this one, for the movie side of things. I'm not sure. Was it for this one? They have definitely collaborated with Walt Disney, but was it for Vision Pro? Was it for something else? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I think it is for Vision Pro. That sounds like something Disney would do.
Yeah.
Also explains.
Yeah,
why it's so
it was for Vision Pro, and it was to do with some of their kind of theme park related things, I think. Also, hey, Yushen, this is very informal. If you want to jump in and ask questions or add anything, we don't have any particular structure. We're just having a discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question, Sunny, of what the App Store for the Vision Pro looks like at launch. I mean, it's got to be appealing to developers, because if you're there on day one and there aren't many apps, then that's a sort of potential to experience what the early days of the iPhone was like, where if you have something, it could be really popular and that could be a commercially valuable exercise for you. But I think the cost of the hardware and the sort of difficulty in developing something that really utilizes it means that it's maybe a harder ask than being there on day one for some of these other products.
Well, because the iPhone wasn't like super expensive when it came out. It was like around the cost of a regular phone.
Yeah. But in saying that as well, Apple does have some really good cross-platform integrations in their apps and things. So although there may not be a lot at launch, I think they'll be able to actually implement the support into, their software to be able to.
Apple is definitely going to have their suite of software at launch.
Oh yeah.
And I think they'll be putting a lot of development time into that.
Yeah.
So
I think they have confirmed apps. If you want to see, I've just send you the guys a link. There are confirmed apps which gonna be when the Vision OS launch. These are the confirmed apps which gonna be there. I was just checking now.
So Messages, Mail, Safari, Music, Notes, Apple TV, Apple Arcades, Keynote, Freeform.
And the third parties are Disney Plus, Microsoft Excel, Word, Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Adobe Lightroom, Unity, base apps and games, and Sky.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. Because Unity, I forgot about that. Unity's committed to having their engine ready for it for launch.
Yeah.
Well, they demoed some stuff in, I don't know if it was the keynote or somewhere else. So I presume it's there now or close. I mean, that was interesting to me. And I mean, both Josh and Jason, you have experience with Unity and also with games programming. I mean, how much do you think that is a driver for this headset? And
it's hard
do you
to
have any
say with
sense?
AR. It's too expensive for it to replace any of the VR stuff, although there will, of course, be some incentive by the fact that it'll be the only mixed reality device on Apple.
Yeah.
Augmented reality games, there's a lot of potential there. Like I'm very, very big on wanting to see augmented reality games really do well. But I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned with both Unity's, I mean, it's not as bad as Unreal's efficiency, but like how much a Unity game would actually drain the battery of this device, especially if it's got any kind of poor programming or anything that could just suck the life out of it, and then you won't actually have a lot of runtime.
Okay.
Given the
But
fact that it's an M1 processor and
M1
it's
should
an
be
M2
fine.
processor, sorry.
I'm more
Unity doesn't
thinking
run
about-
that bad on M2.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine in that regard. I'm more thinking about developers taking shortcuts and not optimizing than anything
Yeah,
else.
true.
But on top of that, if it's available within Unity, it means that there's a lot of other styles of apps that could actually be developed for this, because Unity does have quite a large suite and customization that could actually be used to create things that are unique that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in things like Xcode or anything else like that.
Oh, well, with these anyway.
With these, yeah.
But yeah, because Unity already has mixed reality support built in.
Yeah, exactly.
For AR devices and
Right.
for VR devices.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder if, if it actually does take off a little bit, you could actually get companies that are also going to take already pre-constructed AR games in that and bring them across to the Apple device, because Unity typically is fairly good at being able to jump between different devices.
Could you, hypothetical here, and I was going to say,
Go, Josh.
you go. No, you go, and then I'll add my part.
I was going to say, do you think this pairing with Unity is a particularly Apple thing? I was trying to think back to past times where they'd taken someone else's technology stack and utilized it. And that couldn't really recall situations with that. Like the typical Apple thing to me would be, forget Unity, all this stuff should be done with Metal and Vision Kit and all Reality Kit or whatever their technologies are, and everything's better. But it almost seems like they've decided that Unity was necessary just because it's, I don't know, so common or something else.
I feel that it's Unity.
I feel the kit is, if we talk about the Vision, the augmented reality kit and all those things, and Metal, I don't think so it's been that good for them. Like it's not 100%, or I would say it's not well equipped for as compared to Unity, because in Unity you can do a lot of things as compared to those. I think you are restricted. That could be one of the reason for them to choose Unity, as Unity is very well versed in that aspect.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm surprised Apple would approach Unity. I would actually assume it'd be the other way around. Unity having basically, gone, public and all that kind of stuff. It's been diving into projects outside of its regular scoping. And I'm wondering if they were more likely to have approached Apple, and Apple's gone, hey, we've got this thing coming out soon. Do you want to, get integration for that? Rather than Apple actually approaching Unity and going, do you want to develop for our device?
Yeah.
It's obviously a close collaboration, because the senior VP or something from Unity up on stage talking about it and spruiking the hardware and how good it is as a Unity experience and things. So
yeah, no, definitely. And that's the thing, like Unity's been diving into, AI generation stuff. It's been diving, now into this kind of thing. I think Unity's trying to get into these kinds of technologies, which is what makes me sort of lean to it's probably Unity pushing this integration. But if Apple have given them the okay, then I'm assuming it's actually been going on for a while, and that it'll actually be pretty good and solid to develop for at this point. So
it is interesting though, to Sunny's point that you're making before about like the adoption of Apple's technologies that they've been pushing for gaming, because I get the same sense that this stuff, they're proud of it and what it's capable of, and every year they showcase 1 or 2 collaborations with a game studio that's doing something amazing, but then it doesn't feel like there's great adoption of it. And like I noticed again in the I don't know, maybe it's the State of the Union or one of the sessions this year, they were talking about doing like a game porting toolkit that would ease the transition for people, which says to me that they're again focusing on trying to help people transition, because it's obviously seen as too hard or too much of a barrier.
yeah, no, definitely.
Another thing is that I feel that there would be a big learning curve for anyone who is gonna start creating apps for Vision OS. I think because as a new developer, there are a lot of things to learn, as from my understanding. So I'm not sure how easily any new developer can get up to speed to make a simple app in the Vision Pro. That would be like a big challenge for Apple as well.
I mean, like even outside of just general development and learning how to actually develop for AR, it's a completely different interaction and design style that developers would have to learn.
Yeah.
You're not going to be programming people with, taps and clicks and all that kind of stuff. You're going to have to actually teach people essentially from scratch about how to actually use an AR device, because not everybody's used one before. So a lot of the interaction principles that you'd have for, a website or for a mobile app or anything else like that don't apply in AR. Yeah.
And when they are retrofitted into it, it's going to be a bit clunky and it's not going to necessarily feel right unless there's been special consideration for it.
Yeah, 100%.
I think they have launched the design guidelines for the Apple Vision Pro. I think that's what I've seen, that they have in the HIG human interface.
Have you looked at them?
I haven't. I just heard and I just Googled it, and so I just saw there were a lot of things they mentioned. So haven't looked at it in detail.
Yeah, no, I imagine there'd be a lot to actually take into consideration there, and it'd be very different to what their other design paradigms may have been. So I'd be curious about how strict they're going to be, whether they actually want to allow through a bunch of apps that aren't necessarily fully following it just to get more on their store, or whether they prefer to actually make sure that they nail it right. Which, knowing Apple, I think they'd nail it right. They wouldn't try and push for heaps of apps. They'd rather focus on things that are polished. But I'd be curious to sort of see.
So I think one of the interesting natures of VR, and again, like this comes with a caveat that I'm not super familiar with use of VR headsets. I don't use them regularly. I'm not familiar with the kind of operating systems or app things on the other, but I get the sense that when people are writing software for them, typically you're just using that one piece of software at a time. I haven't really seen other VR headsets where you have this kind of concept of multiple things running at once. And Apple's demonstrations of the Vision Pro really seem to be pushing this spatial computing, as they're calling it. And the idea that, first of all, you take existing apps, they can sit in the space and they just become a plane in 3D space that you can resize and move around. But then like the really simple way of updating an app is you rebuild it, and some of the standard controls all of a sudden have depth, but you can also add depth to them manually so that you can have, something that sticks out, or when you look at it, it kind of raises or something. But then if you've got 3D content, which might be a 3D model for a product you're looking at, or let's say it's a chess game and you have a 3D chessboard in front of you, then that thing is a 3D object that sits in the space as well. But obviously it's still surrounded by other apps that you have running, and you're free to sort of move them around and play with them. I mean, are any of you familiar with other headsets where you've got this whole idea of computing and multitasking in the same way we have with desktop computing?
So,
Mixed reality.
there are certainly, so yes, but also a bit different. So just as an example, on my Oculus Quest, and yes, I'll call it Oculus Quest 2, Meta can go away. It says Oculus. It says Oculus on the thing. I'm going to keep calling Oculus.
Yeah.
That in itself has that sort of like one app per main focus, but there are certainly apps that exist, and I use one called Virtual Desktop that does actually allow you to then have multiple different things in a 3D environment. And certainly, I think it's Steam VR, their home screen as well, it does the same thing, where they've actually got it set up in a virtual space where you can interact with multiple different things. But that's more of an app actually doing it rather than the headset itself having that as an initial goal.
Yeah.
A quick question. When they announced Apple Vision Pro, did you guys have you watched Ready Player One? Did the device reminded of you the same thing, the same movie, the headset that those guys wear in that movie?
I haven't seen Ready Player One, and I know
it's amazing movie. I would recommend if you haven't. It will exactly, you could remember that the whole headset, the thing they showed, it just reminds you of that, the Ready Player One movie. It's a very amazing movie. I would say I would recommend that movie actually. It's one of the good sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
During that time.
Do you think they did? Do you think they did that intro video as a sort of homage to that movie? Do you get the sense that was the inspiration?
No, I would say it's so because that movie was more on the game side of things, but I would say the headset and that the suit and all, I think they, in that movie which showed, I think this Apple Vision Pro can go to us to have that kind of a feeling, like the suit in that movie which showed, like anything you do in that particular, you could say the mixed reality world, you can feel in this world as well. So those things could go into that aspect, but I would recommend everyone to watch that movie. That's a very good movie to relate to this concept, Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Cool. I had a couple of other things that I noted about the Vision Pro. One is 3D camera and like videos and photos. Did you see this? Is it anyone excited or thought about it or think it's a weird gimmick?
I think it's got some really cool possibilities and applications. I mean, there's always that gimmick element to a lot of the stuff when it first comes out. It can be hard to judge what's going to take off and what's not. But yeah, like I remember years ago when I was actually a student, one of the things I was loving in terms of a research proposal was the idea of having a building plan as a 2D element turned into 3D and AR so people could actually see the actual result, make adjustments in 3D space, which can be converted back to the 2D plan in terms of like a way to get the client or anything to be able to understand what the proposed changes were. And I think that, using these kinds of technologies like the 3D cameras and all that kind of stuff, you could possibly get some really cool stuff done with that. Not only just for like photos or anything else that, a general person may use, but just in terms of like cool, useful applications that could be actually used within industry. There could be a heap of potential there, I think. And I don't think it'd be a gimmick. But again, you'd probably need the support there though without it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting, the industry element, because from what I saw of Apple's marketing, it seemed like they were pitching it as a sort of family feature. And I feel like they must think it's important because they've dedicated a physical button to it on the headset, right? Which means at any moment you can take these 3D photos or videos, which I always I always like to look at how Apple make use of physical buttons on devices, because I get the feeling that's where they think there's some necessary feature. It's sort of the same with the digital crown on this device being used, I think, for like the immersive level of moving between like AR and VR. That sort of says that's a significant or a primary feature or thing you'd want to be controlling at a moment's notice. I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the direction of them trying to aim at family and things like that really counteracts their price point. But I feel like I'm wondering, is it important for people who do have separation or things like that? So, you know, if there's family in other countries or anything else like that, as a way to be able to get a better experience in interacting with them and make them feel closer by having these ability to capture 3D photos and that, is that the primary market that they're trying to aim for? I don't know. Yeah. Because in terms of like a general thing, you know, for an everyday person, it does feel a bit more gimmicky if you're just using it just for your own personal use. I don't think I have any use for 3D photos at the moment in my life, but yeah.
But maybe you would say the same thing with something like live photos if you'd never used them. And then when you do use live photos for the first time and have like the sort of moments around a photo captured, and when it works well and shows something cool, it's sort of magical, right? Or to be able to take a photo that's not the best moment and pick, you know, another one very close by. All of these things are, you realize the value of them when you actually start to use them.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Like I did originally think that, yeah, live photo was a bit of a gimmick itself as well. Until I was able to see that, you know, it's a multi-shot thing and you can select the best one within that small window of time to get that perfect shot. Because you always get shots that are blurry and things like that on your old typical, you know, single point, you know, instance of taking a photo. I'd be curious what the 3D element could bring, you know, in terms of that, because yeah, I don't know.
Quick question on that, like if I would be interesting to know, like if I'm using that headset and if I'm seeing that particular photo, can anyone in my family can join with another headset and can see the photo? Because that would make it more interesting. If I'm watching a movie, like if I have to have that experience like with my family and friends, I just wouldn't want to wear that and watch that movie alone. Probably I would want my other family member to join me and watch that movie alone, a movie with me, and have that experience. Is that something they talked about in that thing?
So they certainly talked about collaboration and look, a couple of points. I think you make a really interesting point, Sunny. It was something I was going to bring up too, which is first off, like I think the live camera stuff, the 3D camera stuff could be more compelling if you could like live stream it, so that you could imagine a grandparent in another country with a head who was watching as part of, I don't know, some celebration or birthday or whatever, and could kind of experience it live and feel like they were there. I think your other point of like entertainment or rewatching something, that certainly is one of the marketed aspects of use of this product, right? Like, and they talk about what is it, their technology SharePlay, where you can watch like movies at the same time or collaborate on things together, and they have this sense of a sort of virtual avatar. I can't remember what they called it, but they somehow construct from your face that's a representation of you that feels like it's in the space. So to answer your question, yeah, that's definitely something they were pushing as a use of this product, but I don't think particularly around the live videos. I think that was more about sort of like personal capture and playback. But my feeling is that affects so much being present in the moment for these things that I can't imagine myself wanting to use it, even if I had one of these.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can say, yeah, I definitely agree with the whole live streaming thing, because individually, I don't know, but live streaming, that's a huge use. That could be really cool. Yeah.
The The final thing I'd written down about the Vision Pro that we didn't touch on was the kind of keyboard interaction. It seems like you can use your own devices like iPhone or your Mac as an input device, but also I didn't think I saw it in Apple's marketing, but someone in a review said that it has a virtual keyboard so that I guess you can tap on the desk or whatever and do entry, which I think is interesting as well, so that if you were, say, using it and writing code, you don't need to be dictating it or using some weird text entry, because I feel like that's been one of the failings of VR, has been good text entry in different places.
Yeah, I think the AR element of being able to see the keyboard if you need to actually see it is useful compared to VR, which completely locks you out of that mixed reality element. The virtual keyboard is where I'm super curious about, and especially if you can adjust keyboards rather than just using, you know, whatever is sitting in front of you physically, being able to change keyboard, especially if you have language changes or anything else like that, being able to switch the keyboard that you're using or the actual particular interactive tool in front of you that you're using would be really cool. I'm curious to see how accurate it is and how much the gestures and keyboard interactions and things like that are in terms of picking up, because if they don't work well, it's going to be pretty poor, you know. But if they're actually really well done, then you could get some really cool interactions there, and I think that could actually be used in a wide variety of instances.
And that's almost a nice place to sort of finish up that Vision Pro conversation, because I think you're right, Jason. Like it's all about how well each of these things they've talked about really works. Like if they're smooth and seamless, it will be magical. It will be amazing. People will herald it as a, you know, game-changing thing. If these things are clunky, then it's not going to be as successful, right? Like, even just as simple stuff as the sort of augmented reality part, which is that in some of the previous augmented reality things, you're putting something in front of people's normal vision. Here, it's like a pass-through, you know, they're looking at screens. So it depends how seamless that view of the world around you is, how natural it feels. And then the use of things in 3D, you know, they talked about their spatial audio and how realistic things seem and putting shadows on surfaces and stuff. Like, I guess it's really a question of just how seamless each of these things is and how smoothly it's handled.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think there's one more thing would be a fatigue, how they think about that thing, because I remember when I wear the Oculus Rift, after a while it just starts to have something on your eyes, like your eyes getting a bit you feel something weird. Also there is sweat around your when you wear those things, and those were the few things I would say, like, which I'm not sure if they have thought about it or not, because those are the things which is very important as a user or as a user perspective. I think about like how longer I can wear that thing and utilize it, because I feel that's one thing, like the eye pain, the sweat around that whole thing you're wearing and all those things. I think that's like a very weird, I would say, but yeah, if they have thought about it or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then there's also other issues like VR sickness, you know, where you can get disoriented if you're using these things and get dizzy. And I mean, hopefully the quality of things means that some of these things are less of an issue, but we won't know until we use it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Vision Pro, what else were people interested or excited about? Do you want to talk about like iOS or developer things?
Games.
Games. So, yeah, tell us about games. What did you get out of the...
So it's interesting. So one of the things they were talking about is that they've actually created some new tools, very similar to Steam and Linux's Proton layer, for actually running Windows-based games on Mac. And the idea of this is to actually help in porting games from Windows over to macOS native. So this is basically just a quick tool that lets you run them in a compatibility layer to test how they work as you're continuing to port and develop them over to macOS.
Oh, right. So this is when I'd mentioned this game porting toolkit. One of the steps they
Yes.
said was evaluating your current game. And that's this emulation that then gives you some hints as to what parts would be worth changing or rewriting to get efficiency benefits or something. Is that or just to
I'm
see
not
how
exactly
well it
sure
works
what,
with that
like,
emulation?
yeah, I'm assuming just to make sure that there's nothing major broken. When it comes to what you need to rewrite for efficiency's sake, it'll basically just be the rendering API is the main one. They'll have to convert from... This is me getting on my tangents, but this is a problem of Apple's own design. They'll have to go from either DirectX 12 or Vulkan over to Metal, which the fact that Apple does not support Vulkan is wild to me, given that it's supported on all other computing applications. Is a bit annoying, but anyway. But no, it's a good step in, and it's obviously that they are trying to get people to consider Mac as a gaming platform. Because certainly it used to be somewhat of a viable gaming platform. Obviously Windows is the predominant one, but particularly when they moved over to M1, that was when it really became a problem, because it's a case of the very few games that worked on there, whether or not they worked under Rosetta 2 was kind of rolling the dice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being a gamer, Josh, and having used some of the recent Mac hardware, do you think if people went through the work of doing this, there could be some of these games could run well on the Apple hardware that exists now? It's
The
just
short answer is I don't know. Because obviously running Unity runs fine on Mac. So I don't think there'd be anything like, I think some games would run perfectly fine. Where I'm not sure is some of the more modern and intensive games and some of the more modern techniques. Unreal Engine, even though they have now released an M1 native or an ARM native version of Unreal, still runs not great. And Metal doesn't actually have a lot of the feature set that Windows does. To the point where stuff like what's very big in games at the moment is obviously ray tracing. That's not supported on Metal, at least at the moment when it comes to Unreal. So it has to do it via software, which is much, much slower.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Although
Quick
they do
question
have
on
the new M2 Ultra.
Yes, but how expensive is the computer that has an M2 Ultra in it, Jason?
They're coming stock standard now, I think, in a bunch of them. I haven't actually looked at the price, but yeah, I would imagine through
the
release.
price is the thing. Like, they'll come stock standard in the Mac Studios and the Mac Pro,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that they are going to be very good machines. But yeah, given the price of, again, cost is an issue here.
Yeah.
When I think my MacBook without it, like if I were to buy it, would be like $3,500, and it kind of runs games okay-ish.
Yeah.
That's not really the best experience. Like, it's a good starting point for Apple, but I think there's still a lot more work to go.
how about the graphics driver, like NVIDIA thing? Like, because I think Windows has NVIDIA graphics of like that also gives a boost to the games, right? Because
It does.
that is
And the problem is that since they've brought out the M1 Max, they dropped support for external GPUs.
yeah.
Because that would have been an
So-
easy boost for them.
Although they just announced new Mac Pro hardware recently, right, with expansion slots and stuff. So I think that certainly has it, but a bit like what you just said, Josh, that's the top of the line, amazingly expensive machine. So it's
Around
not
10K.
Yeah,
Around 10K could go
exactly.
more
So
than
unless
10K.
you're-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is when it comes to obviously for gaming or anything else like that, most people would probably lean to buying a Windows machine for, just general gaming or Linux or anything else like that. The question would be, what gamer needs a Mac as well? And that's where instead of buying a Mac and a Windows machine, you can buy the one that does both, even if it is more expensive. Yeah, that's where I would sort of lean to, maybe the higher end stuff might be okay, provided that they need both.
But it should be like, if I'm buying that thing, it should be 100% not have any bugs and all those things, because once I invested in that thing, I don't want to
Mhm.
reinvest in something else again.
yeah.
Which,
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think people who are just pure gamers and don't necessarily need a computer or anything else like that for anything, they're probably not going to buy a Mac for gaming.
No,
Well, especially when the games aren't there at the moment, right?
Yeah,
correct.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, if they're wanting PC or if they're wanting gaming, they'll probably instead get a console. Or if they want something that's PC gaming, they'll probably get one of the Steam-based handhelds or one of the Windows variants.
They're actually really taking off, and I'm actually honestly surprised Apple didn't announce some kind of handheld device like that.
I mean,
figured
as far as
that would
they're
be something.
concerned, like you've got the iPad and the iPhone, both of which you can attach a controller to, and both of them support streaming from Xbox and from PlayStation.
Yeah, true, I guess. I just assumed there would be something a bit closer to having, the iPad element and controller all in one device.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not yet.
Chris-
Maybe in the future, but they're still not quite there yet when it comes to to bringing games back into the forefront.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think one of the things here is that Apple's approach to bringing out new products is that they sit and interact with the rest of their ecosystem. So like creating a product like that is usable for a very particular purpose, but less useful as part of the ecosystem, feels like it might not be the kind of thing Apple's focusing on. Like even with the Vision Pro, right? We're seeing that they didn't bring it out as a VR AR headset. They brought it out as something that really interacts with and fits in with their ecosystem, and you can use it as a display, and it interacts with the other products. Their other products show up in the space that you're in, and all this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah. No, definitely. I don't think they're there yet. I'm excited by the fact that they have at least taken some consideration towards gaming. But they've still got a long way to go, I think.
So other than gaming, anything else that excited people from a sort of developer perspective? Did anyone watch the State of the Union and see what Apple's developer tools changes were?
I think SwiftUI data, which is the one they introduce for the Swift UI. So that's a layer, you can say it's a wrapper for the core data they have introduced. That's one thing has interested me. But also I have another question, that there wasn't anything announced for Combine, because I think when they announced Combine, like I guess 2 years back, was it 2 or 3 years back? After that, there is no improvement, or maybe I'm not sure if that thing is dead.
Yeah, it's probably dead or dying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
So-
is like,
Yeah.
So I don't even recall the Apple Combine stuff.
I think they were planning to have that reactive kind of a thing, but I think, and that point of time when they introduced Combine, there was a lot of adoption within the developer. But I think after that, I haven't seen anything or any announcement regarding that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It looks like they're really just backing their Swift UI approach to everything, right?
Yeah.
It is the way it feels to me. And like even just feels like they've doubled down on that completely. Like there's a lot of things that are Swift UI first or Swift UI only, and they're sort of saying this is the best way to do everything. Use it for Vision OS, use it for whatever. What was your first point, Sunny?
Oh, the SwiftUI data. I was talking about the SwiftUI data, which they introduced for
Oh, yeah,
the SwiftUI.
Yeah, Swift data, which is not just Swift UI, it's just Swift in general.
Okay.
That's I'm interested in that. Look, I think that was something that piqued my interest as well, and something we may use for the unit, just because at the moment, the core data way of you write a model a core data model, and then you may generate classes from it, but they're detached. I mean, the way that you do this and how it leverages macros, which is another exciting aspect of Swift, is that you just write model annotations on something and it is just connected with core data. And a lot of that stuff is just handled invisibly, including like iCloud syncing and everything. So, I mean, if that works well, it's super exciting. And there's a lot of connecting code and boilerplate that goes away, which would be super nice. Aside from the fact that as well, it fits very well into Swift UI's use of things so that you can, connect it with your Swift UI code. And, you know, I guess it's all the model stuff is already observable, and you don't have to write any of that aspect of things.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think Swift UI is getting a lot of really good support at the moment that's integrating with a lot of their systems. So I'm wondering how long UI kit and everything is going to keep going around for.
It would be the same as like how the Objective-C were, like
like it'll
slowly
stay
phasing
there
out.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But
But I thought like the Swift data was mostly on the Swift UI perspective, not on the storyboard or maybe that perspective. Like, because I haven't seen any example, like when they showed and when they talked about the example, it was mostly on the Swift UI, and the documentation was more on the Swiftware side, but not on the storyboard or maybe that side, how to collaborate on the older way, which was like very amazing for me. But
But ultimately, you realize, Sonny, these things are just Swift classes or structs. So once you've got them and they're part of your model, you can interact with them just as normal structs or classes instances and work with them. So even though they're not examples, they're pretty easy to work with.
Definitely.
I think they'd just be showing off the Swift UI stuff because that's their newer element. So they'd want to highlight that.
So the macro stuff was exciting to me. I want to talk about that for a moment. I mean, I've used preprocessor macros. I wrote a lot of C and C++ when I was younger, and that stuff was cool, but it often led to a lot of problems with code compiling, and issues with finding problems could often be caused by these preprocessor macros that you wrote. And I thought I delved a little bit into how the macros work in Swift, and I think it feels like it's been done quite elegantly. Like they have these sense of different ways that they can transform the code, and they talk about things like I can't remember their terminology, but macros that duplicate a method, which you might use if you've got like a non-async version of code and you want to just generate an async equivalent to it, or vice versa. There's things like these observable macros that we talked about where it generates additional annotations or accessor methods, or there's something as complicated as model that adds a whole lot of code. But in each of these cases, it's a transformation, and Xcode can show the transformed code. Xcode can allow you to debug and see the transformed code, and it's all type safe because the macro itself is not just done by a preprocessor and then the code is compiled. It understands the relevant types that are fed into this macro, and the transformation, I think, is done as a plugin to the compiler, which is kind of cool as well. So I don't know. I mean, I don't pay attention to Swift evolution or anything like that, but I felt like this was done in a nice way.
Yeah, I think I missed that. That sounds really cool. I'd quite like, what that could actually do. Sort of processing. Yeah.
I remember that talking about that part, but I also like didn't pay that much consideration on the macros part.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other places they showed examples for their own use of it. Like one of them is generating query code that extracts things from core data and displays it, and doing that in sort of one line that might be a bunch of code otherwise. And I mean, we can even imagine that you might write, and in the unit, we might write macros to perform data tasks or something and check responses and do stuff like that, right? Because there's some of that code that ends up looking a bit boilerplatey, and you could, you could make use of that. So that was something interesting, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think
that's other developer things people noticed or were interested in.
Not necessarily developer things, but I noticed there was the push on the profile, the profile sharing and profile creation and that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering how important that is going to be to their, I guess, general interface guidelines and things like that when it comes to profile creation within apps. Is there going to be a larger focus on having these profiles and actually having, I guess, like ways of like personalizing your space within an app? And if that's actually going to be a part of their standards a bit more in the future, just because they sort of seem to like really focus on that element a bit. And airdrop and being able to share things.
So that's a good point. So those things are called, what do they call them? Call posters.
Yeah.
And the idea is this is like you have your image that's shown to other people, presumably, when you call them, which is a bit like in recent years in iMessage, it could share your emoji, I don't know, avatar image or whatever. But this sounds like the next step. And I assume that it's not, you don't have to be in their contacts already. It's somehow attached to your profile. But then it makes sense that if it's, say, attached to an email address or an iCloud account in the same way that, what's that online service that does profile images? Gravatar or something?
Yeah, Gravatar, I think.
Yeah, Gravatar.
Like yeah,
if it's something like that, where, you would associate some images or other information with an account, it would be interesting if then, their recommendations are that you show this for profile information in any app. I mean, they definitely talked about these call posters being used in phone, but also FaceTime and like a couple of other places, I feel.
Yeah, they've seemed to have it in quite a few places, and the ability to airdrop things easily amongst other users.
Right.
I'm wondering if they're going to actually try and get that to spread into, sort of apps and things like that, and the ability to sign up with your poster or something.
I remember one more thing I think they introduced, which was on the call thing, like where so when someone calls you, it will I guess what it will do, if I remember correctly, that you can wait until they say something, or they can record something message. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was to prevent spammers from calling you and getting you will be getting to know who is calling or something like that. I don't remember exactly what was the whole concept or what they talked about, right? But it was something like that, which interested me, but I don't remember what exactly or how exactly it works.
Yeah, I feel like I don't quite exactly remember what it was, but I feel like it sounds like back in the day when you used to be able to do the reverse dial, where you'd sort of like leave a message going, "Hey, it's me, pick up," kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Yeah, which honestly, the amount of spam that's sort of going around nowadays, it's probably quite useful. I know
I'm fairly certain 90% of my phone calls that I get these days are spam.
Yeah.
Oh, even the messages you get, like a toll booth, electricity bill or something, the post office thing, Australia Post thing. I think a lot of spam messages as well.
Yeah, you've missed your package delivery.
Yes.
I've missed 6 package deliveries, none of them by any actual package delivery company. I mean, look, I can't remember what they're called either. I was looking through my notes. It's something like live or visual voicemail or something like that. The idea is that, it's like call screening, right? Like in old school TV shows where someone's got an answering machine. I don't think anyone has them now, but you would listen and hear someone talking into the answering machine, and you'd run over and pick it up because it's a person you actually wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this, right? But it does also transcription of the call. I don't know if you can also hear it. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. And I think I will use it. Like I usually don't answer calls unless they're from a number I recognize. And whenever I do, because I'm expecting a call, a bit like Josh said, it's usually someone that I was spam in some way and someone I didn't want to talk to. So
Yeah, no, 100%.
I was laughing before because Jason, when you were talking about the call posters or whatever they're called, I'm sort of acutely aware that I may want to project one persona for myself. So like I may want, when your phone rings with me calling you, I want you to see one image, but when you have me ringing you, you may want to see a completely different image, right? Which is this thing of who actually has control over that, and can you override it and things, which I think if you don't allow that, you annoy people, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I was going to say it is always annoying having people call when you don't want them to.
Oh, great. I was going to say you're calling me otherwise. I was like, who is this person calling me? Nice prank, Josh. Yeah, the live voicemail stuff is interesting. What was I excited by in terms of features? I do like that idea of the sort of contact sharing stuff, the stuff they called name drop of bringing the phones close to each other and doing quick sharing like that. I know a number of apps have done that sort of thing in the past. If it's done well, again, it will be great. Like I use AirDrop a lot, but often it's flaky and it's time consuming to make work. So
it's just an NFC sharing, right? It's just basically you're sharing, just tapping, and it will just show add the contact for you, right?
I think so. And as I understand it, because I had a quick look at the APIs for it, in both Swift UI and UIKit, there are ways when you're in a view controller to sort of advertise relevant on-screen information that you want to be shareable. So I guess the idea is it's sort of set up and ready. And if you bring these phones together, it offers to share that information that's almost pre-selected. So like imagine you've got a contact card up or you've got something else, it will do that. So yeah, again, if it's done well, I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think a couple of things I was excited about is like minor points in iOS updates. One of them was photo recognition, like machine learning photo recognition for family cats and dogs. Like they've done that for family members for the longest time, but Apple's never actually detected pets. I think that's an interesting thing to be doing, and I'm sort of surprised they didn't do it a long time ago. I think it'll get a lot of use and make people happy, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just been harder to actually work that out.
Maybe
than people.
I mean, if I had to be a little sort of surprised about things from WWDC, it's Apple's reluctance or maybe their use of machine learning being really like in the background, and when they're just really comfortable with its use. Like they're obviously using it because they're doing it, I think, to choose photos for some of their automatic experiences, and it sounds like they're doing it for keyboard prediction and stuff more this year, but there don't seem to be big advances in Siri. Like they mentioned 2 innovations for Siri, and one was saying Siri instead of Hey Siri, which is not a big innovation. And the other one was like making back-to-back requests. So asking it for like 2 things at once rather than one. But with all of the sort of evolution of machine learning and language models and other things, I'm a little surprised there isn't more of that going on. But then again, like Apple historically haven't been big users of this stuff.
I think given this, I feel there is a lot of improvements they need to do in the Siri stuff, because if I compare with the Google, the same OK Google thing. Okay, like the Google does a lot of things as compared to the Siri, and I've just started. Sorry about
Are you going to
that.
give us a live demo? Are you? Oh, it just thought you were talking to it.
Yeah. I was just talking. As I said, okay, Google, and started. Okay. So yeah, so it's similar to that. I feel like they have done a lot better in the Google side of things as compared to the Siri. I think there is a lot of improvements they need, I think.
Yeah.
Give it a year or so, I'm sure that Google will just drop Google Assistant because they're bored with it.
Yeah. And look, Google have always been like, they've been a huge user of machine learning technology and driving a lot of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it's sort of not surprising they're ahead in this space. It's clear Apple are using it in some places, like using it for photo recognition. So if you search your photo library for tree, you get trees, and that's obviously ML in use. And it was weird, a couple of years ago, their I don't know if it was WWDC or one of the iPhone launches, they talked about how they were going to do like visual recognition of flowers and plants and stuff like this. And then it really I couldn't find it ever in the operating system, but that's something again that they've announced as a feature of iOS 17, that you'll be able to search for plants and animals and landmarks by just like tapping on entries in photos and clicking look up, which I think is obviously, again, machine learning and interesting. And if that's there and it works well and it's sort of seamless, I think they're minor features that aren't going to be big headline items, but if they work, they'll delight people because they can just so easily find something or do something.
Yeah, but I think that sort of use of machine learning, and Apple are very cautious of making sure that they get it right before they release it half-baked. I think that's good. I'm actually glad they didn't go over the top hype into AI and GPT models and all that sort of stuff, because yes, I know they're exciting, I know they're cool, but if I'm being honest, there are way too many people overhyping them at the moment, and it's getting annoying.
Yeah. I'll add a +1 to that. I agree with you, Josh. We can be crotchety old people getting annoyed.
Get off my lawn.
Exactly.
My
non-AI curated lawn. Exactly.
My non-existent lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Traditional lawn that's not generated, not a generated image of a lawn. Where every blade of grass is the same. Do you know what? Actually, the other feature I'm really excited about was like a tiny small print item when I was looking at the feature list. This is that they're automatically sorting grocery lists into catalogs in reminders. So I use reminders as my grocery list, so I can just ask Siri to add something to our shared shopping list, and that's shared with my family members so they can add things to it too. And I do the shopping. So I'm kind of like delighted by that. And it also says, if you don't like the grouping, you can change it and all your devices remember. And I'm like, okay, that sort of says to me there's someone at Apple that uses it in the same way as me, and it's going to get better. So it may well be that's the thing that's most exciting for me in the upgrade to iOS 17.
I think I missed that feature, but yeah, it's actually a good feature. Pretty much I use a lot, like even if not some time form of listing. I think I use sometimes grocery list, but nowadays I just utilize Google to do that because it helps easy. But yeah, for other things I use reminders and things. So I think that grouping thing is very good, I would say.
Yeah, it should be good. I thought the other thing that I was kind of interested in that they're doing, I mean, Apple's often got a health focus, and one of the things they mentioned this year was mental health and also vision health, and doing it in a couple of places. Like vision health, I gather they're taking into account how you're looking at the screen and what position the device is in. And then they also mentioned for myopia for understanding how much sunlight that you get exposure to through the Apple Watch, which I thought is interesting. I don't understand how it would work because, you know, I'm wearing an Apple Watch and I've got a sleeve over it right now. So how does the thing know if I'm in sunlight? I don't understand that. But I think these are interesting things to be doing, and mental health is super important. So if they're providing tools for people to track their own mental health and understand it better, and I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that it's part of these OS updates, and I'll look forward to using them. I mean, also, I guess related to that, I think they've sort of rolled into that this journaling app as well, which there hasn't been a native journaling app. There's plenty of third-party ones. And I guess Apple's draw card here is that they suggest they can use this information and attach relevant photos and other media that they have and build sort of experiences automatically. I think that's interesting. And they certainly have the right ecosystem to be able to do it. This is one of these features that isn't really there yet. I don't think it's in the betas. I think they said it's a later in the year edition. So we'll have to wait and see. A bit like with the app they released last year, Freeform. Have any of you used Freeform much?
No, I can't say I have.
Do you use online whiteboards like Miro or things like that?
I
Yeah.
use Miro, yes.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is you don't use the Apple one because it only works with Apple users, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is another way where Apple just only work with their own things. I mean, it's a bit disappointing. You know, Steve Jobs announced years ago that FaceTime was going to be an open standard, and we might have had a kind of a joint teleconferencing standard. That would have been quite nice.
Yeah, it would have
Didn't
been.
happen. Do you know what else I'm excited about? One of the other features that I saw mentioned, I'm not sure if it's a developer feature or a user feature, is screen sharing support in macOS. I mean, I spend a large part of my day in teleconferences with people and often doing screen sharing, and frequently share the wrong screen or spend time adjusting and sharing the right content. And this stuff is like, the screen sharing stuff looks like it's built into the operating system to the point where, like, you can select a window, and from that window you can ask Zoom to share it on your do screen sharing for it, which I think is cool, right? And maybe that's a nice way to do it from a security perspective. And I'm not quite sure if they've actually worked directly with Zoom or some of this stuff is mock-ups. It'll be interesting to see. But given we are Monash using Zoom for this meeting and other things, it's kind of cool if it has that nice integration, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely would be good.
Yeah. I know, I really enjoy how they integrate some of these systems into their just native environments and things like that. And it's just, yeah, like compared to, because like I look at a lot of Windows sort of built-in things, and it's just, there's nothing there. It's just like, it's
There's
incredibly
nothing there.
frustrating. Yeah. You know, whereas Apple does have this just general like interconnective environment that just all works together and plugs together just so well. Yeah. And sometimes I wish Windows did that, but also sometimes I do like the customization as well. So I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think they also introduced something called log your moods and emotions as well, right? In
Yeah.
iOS, I think those things they introduced. I think that was actually a good thing. I feel.
Yeah. So Sunny, that's part of their whole like mental health set of features. It's built into the watch and iOS and health kit or health app. And yeah, it's about understanding your own reactions and mood and stuff like that. So yeah.
Which, to sort of go outside of the WWDC, that's actually something I saw much more within this semester that's just been in terms of what students were developing. There was a
yeah.
lot more mental health applications being developed by our students compared to in previous years. You know, just sort of like mood tracking and things like that. So yeah, there's clearly a need for it, and yeah, I'd be curious. Yeah, like how much that's going to grow in the future, and like what sort of integrations you get across apps and things.
That may well be coming as sort of awareness of mental health in general is raised, which I think is a good thing. But
Yeah.
yes, I mean, one of the things, we had a student earlier this semester that was wanting to use health kit data, like just, I don't know, step count was a simple one to get. And you can extract all of that from health kit. I wrote a little trivial test app to try it, even without any kind of developer account. So it may well be that if this mood data is available, you could utilize it and show it in a different way or something, which would be cool.
Yeah.
I think they also introduced something called a journal amp, I guess. Something like which will utilize your photos, memories, and you can also put your daily journal entry. So I think that is also pretty good, which I can be utilized in apps or maybe something.
Yeah, I do too. And if it automatically connects or
Yeah.
collates things because it knows they happened at the same time, or it knows they occurred nearby each other. And if it can suggest to you things that might be related to it, like, I don't know, reactions from people or related photos, that would be quite cool, right? Good way of documenting or chronicling different things.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things I was intrigued about was as part of this teleconferencing features they were talking about, as well as the FaceTime stuff, they were talking about, I don't know what you call it, but like software camera support, almost like they say built into macOS and its screen sharing, they could take your image and put it as a little avatar over the corner of your slides, or they showed a demo where someone looked like they were presenting in a room, and it might take my body, cut it out, put it smaller and put my slides next to it. So these sort of compositions of software cameras that present a view that's created in software. And then the other one they had was the like reactions, which sounds a bit crazy to me, where their example were like hearts or confetti or fireworks, and you know, I'll do some gesture, maybe I form a heart. How do I actually do it? Like this, and maybe it does something to my background. And I think these are interesting, especially if they're done at that level, because it means regardless of what software you're using, whether it be Teams or FaceTime or Zoom, that it works in all of them. But I also wonder if it's invasive, if people don't know it's there and suddenly I behave in a certain way and confetti falls down.
Yeah. I was gonna say one thing that actually did, like, it was sort of something very subtle that I noticed, which was again going back to those the profile things. Was
these
the
are Vision
support...
Pro ones, Jason, or the ones for the camera?
No, this was the you know how you could share the profiles.
Oh, the call posters.
Yeah, the call posters. Yeah, I keep forgetting the name of it. Was actually the support for vertical text and things like that. I noticed they're actually, it made me sort of think, are they actually now starting to focus a bit more on more of their international market rather than having a very Western centric design, and allowing the support of things like, you know, that vertical text to, I wonder if, you know, they're going to be looking towards those other markets and work out what kind of things do they want. Because when you're sort of doing like the heart emoji and all that kind of stuff, it made me start to think about, you know, some of the TikTok trends and things like that that are going on internationally, and how maybe, you know, they could be looking towards these markets and seeing, you know, the need to actually start to integrate into these things into their just general base software, and just support for international users.
I think the other aspect of it too, I mean, I agree with you, Jason. I think the other aspect of it is just personalization of devices as well. I think what Apple started out and didn't give you a lot of options for that, but they've allowed a lot more over time, like even customizing things like fonts on the home screen or other things like that, right? That you didn't have control over, that really make the device feel more personal to you, especially when it's something that's outward facing and available to other people.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Thanks, Yu Shen, who just said they couldn't join the conversation, but said it would make a great podcast and they enjoyed listening to the discussion. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons, Yu Shen, that we were recording this, was that we'll put it up, and some students who couldn't come along to it can certainly have a listen to it. So
yeah,
thanks for feedback. I don't know. I think we had this till 2:30, so we're almost at time. Don't know if other people can stick around for a bit or have other things they wanted to discuss. Anyone got to go, or anyone can hang around for a few minutes longer?
I can hang around for a few
I
minutes
can hang
longer.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right, maybe let's do about 15 more minutes and sum up. I had a couple more things that we could touch on, mostly like macOS stuff we didn't cover. One was Apple TV screensavers. Interesting to me, when I looked at the product page for macOS Sonoma, this was the first thing at the very top of their feature list, right? Which seems crazy,
Really?
right? Of all the
Yeah.
different changes, that you promote that as the top one. I mean, look, I've for a couple of years used an open source piece of software called Aerials, something like that, that used the online source for the Apple TV screensavers and just made them your screensaver on macOS. And what they are, if you haven't seen them, they're like drone footage underwater or in crazy places. And there's some beautiful screensavers. So it's kind of nice that they are going to be available on macOS. I don't know. Have you folks seen these videos?
No, I haven't personally seen the videos, but yeah, I'm still actually just thinking, like, having that as your primary focus for what the features can. Why?
I don't know who would make the decision to put that top of the feature list, so that if you look at the preview, it's the very first thing you see.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. But anyway,
I
the
don't
other
get
one
it.
was the other one was widgets on the desktop. So
Yes.
those
I
of
see
us that
one.
have been using macOS for a while, just hold on one second. I've got boxes of like early versions of macOS here. And in macOS Tiger, which was 10.4, we had this thing, which was called Dashboard, which was a screen next to your desktop with a whole lot of widgets. And I was just thinking, when I saw this, it's like, oh, everything old is new again. We're going back.
Yeah, because Windows
circle.
Vista had that as well.
Well, Windows Vista had it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had this whatever it's called, dashboard, for probably 6 or 7 years, and then they took it away at some point because it wasn't used. I mean, these are a bit different. First of all, the widgets then were web apps, so they were written as little web pages. It kind of reminds me of, do any of you remember back when I was a Windows user, after Internet Explorer, so this might have been like Windows 2000, 2002 or something.
Yeah.
They made a version of Windows where the Windows desktop was a web page, and like, instead of just being an image, and you could put whatever web content you wanted on it. So there was this short period, it seemed, where people could create these dynamic backgrounds for the Windows desktop, which seems like a terrible idea to me, right? That under potential icons and other things, you have this content that's changing.
Yeah, no, it definitely, if you sort of go back to like those really old, terrible websites that just had banner ads everywhere, it's just, why? What is this disgusting mess of a thing? Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I do remember actually that the window, I don't remember what it was, exactly what version of Windows, but I do remember doing that and playing around with it when I was younger, just sort of like doing,
I think I
yeah.
remember as well. I think at that time I used to go to a lot of cyber cafe. We used to say internet cafes where we
Yeah.
used to have something for to play games or something. There was that point of time in India, like you used to go to cyber cafe, internet cafe to play those games. And I still remember those things on the decks on the wallpapers and those things. Yeah, it was
Mm.
very funny. We used to play yeah, we used to just play around with those things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's a bit weird, but yeah,
But yeah,
it
no,
was
like,
a mm,
oh yeah, yeah, no, very strange. I was gonna say with the whole widget thing though, I wonder if they're doing it as trying to focus on the idea of connecting like mini apps and things like that together. So like I'm leaning towards like the Apple Watch and these small little windows of things to be able to interact and deal with much larger apps and just quick ways to deal with like notifications or these small little tasks that are needed. Um, which makes me wonder like the growth of widgets within their operating system and probably on iOS as well and all that, how important that's going to be because I'm wondering if, they're expecting that a lot of applications are going to want these small ways to integrate with their overall functioning application, quick ways to be able to do a couple of things or something within the app.
Yeah.
If they want that to spread into their app designs. I don't know.
I think you've got it, Jason, because one of the big changes they advertised this year was in the past, widgets have been informational, right? They've just shown information, but you really couldn't interact with them. And this year they gave them capabilities to have buttons and pass information back. And that means that they've got a different role. Like you say, that they're ways that you can glance at information, act on it quickly and do something. And that means because of that, you probably do want them closer by on the desktop and available on home screens when locked. And they also talked about, can't remember what they called it, but widgets that show live information. So you might imagine you've made a food delivery order and you want to see it, or you've got a flight that's arriving that you're picking up someone for and you want to know its status. So something where there's live status that really matters. Maybe you care about it for a sports match or something as well. And like you want to see that at every opportunity. So I think they're also interesting situations for widgets. But it does mean that, yeah, you want to use them in different ways.
Yeah, but then as you sort of mentioned, like with, it goes back to that old design of what we had where we created those disgusting website looking backgrounds. It's going to turn into a bit of a mess, I think, unless there's a way to clean up the actual look of them. Because, sure, you can customize them to a degree, but that's usually a little bit against Apple's design, I feel, just having a bit of design creative freedom on desktops to a degree. I feel like they like that clean approach where, it's very clear what's going on rather than you being able to create a mess of things on your desktop. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it could be incredibly useful, but I also wonder if there's a specific target audience they're trying to target there because, those widgets could be incredibly useful for someone who wants to quickly integrate between multiple applications and just do small tasks within those applications. If it's, for example, task trackers or stock markets or sporting events or things like that, where you sort of have that quick interaction of, doing things that could be incredibly, incredibly good for them. Whereas I feel like just your everyday generic user is probably going to add all these widgets to their desktop. And then you're going to be like, it's basically, when you go home to fix your parents' computers or something, and it's just full of ads and chaos. What have you created in this monster of a thing? Why? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's going to be your generic everyday user, and I think that's against Apple's design, really, what they usually prefer to go with.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought the other widget related thing that I found interesting was the use of widgets with continuity, which is like having widgets that are on your phone, but then they just display on your computer automatically nearby. Like I find it hard to imagine exactly how that would be done automatically, like how that choice is made as to what's important and what's not, or whether it's everything or, but it's cool if it works.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Like I use a push notification app thing on my Android device to my Windows PC, which I find incredibly useful, being able to, you know, just send files from my phone to my computer, you know, super quickly, display information, sort of, you know, pop up on my phone or my computer, vice versa, send it across all my devices. So I think something like that, where you can have these notifications on your phone also appear on your computer, or being able to send information, you know, make an adjustment on your computer while you're using your computer, that's going to register on your phone. So when you get up and walk away, it's got those changes in there, rather than having to pick up your phone, switch to the computer, switch to the phone, switch to the computer. I think that'd be super, super useful. Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited for that whole like widget integration with their operating system and phone. I think that's probably yeah, something that could be
I
really
mean,
good.
continuity, when it works and is just hidden in the background and does its thing, is really cool set of features. Like that thing of, I don't know, I mean, maybe this isn't just continuity, but some of the things that have delighted me about iOS devices in the past is something like someone's sent me an address in a message, and then I go to Maps and go to start typing it, and it knows it because it knows I was sent a message. I didn't ask it to do that, but it's just clever enough to do that. And
Yeah.
Likewise, if you look up a destination on your maps and then you pick up your phone, if you've got a Mac, and it shows that address you were just looking at, and sort of offers to navigate you there, and it just like kind of knows what you're thinking and does the right thing.
Yeah.
When that works, it's beautiful. When it doesn't, it's again frustrating, because you're like, why did it do it in this situation but not in this other one?
Yeah.
But I like these sort of features, and that was another feature that I saw on the feature list for I guess it was all of the operating systems, was have you folks used that feature where you get like a code to log into a website, and it comes via messages to your phone, but then it shows up on your computer, and Safari offers to autofill it into like the website you're trying to log into?
Yeah.
That's super nice. It's been a feature for several years, and when it happens, it saves you the step of looking it up. One of the things I saw this year was that they're doing it for mail. So if a website emails you a code rather than it going to your messages, then Safari will understand and autofill that. You only get these benefits if you're using the whole ecosystem, which means, you know, if you use Chrome as your browser, you're not going to see the benefit. But if you do, it's cool, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's, yeah, when it works, it's fantastic. Like I love that kind of thing where you know, you can just sort of like all of a sudden not having to worry about copying and pasting something into your thing, or like, you know, having to type it out manually kind of thing. You can just automatically copy and paste it in, or anything else. I know Steam does that kind of thing. I know myself and Josh play Phasmo, so we'd send a thing across, and it can just paste whatever's in your clipboard straight into the game itself. Having those very quick interactions.
Let me see what you have. No!
Yeah, they save you time. They really are quite fast in terms of like these micro interactions that you have to do throughout the day. Like they can just take up so much time, and being able to save this is great. And yeah, you are right. When it doesn't work, it's really bad. But I know it's kind of a bit of not necessarily a forbidden topic, but just like a bit of a controversial topic. I wonder if they'd be looking into machine learning and AI or anything else like that in some of these things to be able to customize it to the user. You know, and like they already do some elements where, you know, obviously things you type or anything, you know, it remembers the kind of stuff that you interact with as a person, but I wonder how deep they could actually go with this interaction across apps and across other features in their operating systems.
I think the answer to that, Jason, is that I think they do, because I used to, so I go to a dance class on a Thursday night, and for a long time I never had that in my calendar. But when I would hop in the car at a certain time on a Thursday night, it would offer to give me directions to that place because it had seen for X number of weeks I would have that behavior. And I mean, that's obviously uses of machine learning where they're employing it to make predictions of what you're likely to be wanting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious, like how deep can the rabbit hole go to a degree? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know either. We didn't touch on watchOS at all. Anyone care about it? Anyone use it?
I don't use it.
You folks have Apple Watches?
I mean,
I do, but I don't have a watch band for it or a charger because Mum stole both of those, so I haven't used mine in months.
Yeah.
No. It's hard to have a functional Apple Watch without a charger or a band.
Well, she gave me the watch in the first place, so I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, it's one element. I honestly think that with the widget upgrades that they're doing, it'll probably bring back the watch. It would make the watch
I
more
think
important.
it's an interesting prediction, Jason. They're obviously spending some effort on it because it seems like they've done an interface update for watchOS 10, and lots of things are different, and they're pushing the use of Swift UI and the way that it displays things on the watch. So, and obviously widgets, you're right, because I think the new home screen view, whatever they called it, is very much widget based.
Yeah.
So things will have a representation there that isn't like the app switcher. It's like a widget view or something. So that will be an interesting one to look at next year and see what it is. I mean, my kind of guilty secret with the watch is I have an Apple Watch, but I don't use most of the apps on it. I use it as a fitness device. I use it as a companion to the phone. So like if I'm navigating somewhere, I'll use it. If I'm sometimes dictate and send messages to it, but I'm not often like sitting at it, going into a particular app and doing something. It's mostly just doing whatever else I'm doing with my phone and being a companion for it.
Yeah.
I think it's the same for me as well.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's where it does excel, which is that it acts as a good companion to these things. And then if and when you do actually need it to do something greater, those apps have some functionality to be able to do that, like to go back and read a messages thread or something on your watch. I would do that very occasionally, but.
Do you think you'd ever use apps on a watch at all in the future? Or is it something that the Apple Watch should probably just remain as a companion device?
Good question. So if I had to say what the hurdle was for me, I think it's just that a small screen device is just not super useful for doing most of those interactions. I don't know, Sunny, how do you feel?
I feel the same. I think I feel like it would be more of a companion for me because it's just like this is very small to do anything. Like I feel sometimes, if I've got some messages, WhatsApp messages, I just reply it sometimes using my watch if I'm doing something. But rarely I feel it is more of a companion. I'm not sure if it's gonna be like a more focus kind of a thing apart from the fitness or maybe anything related to those aspects, like utilizing any specific app. It's very.
I mean, a lot of the time I'm not choosing what to display on it. Like if I receive a phone call when my phone's not nearby, I'll receive it on the watch and then I'll transfer it. Or if I'm doing a workout or a run or something, then I'm looking at it to see what the progress of that is. Or if I'm playing music and I want to adjust the volume, I'll use it to do that because that's what it's showing. But that's kind of my
interesting. Because
hi, sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Yushan.
Was at the gym, sorry. But yeah, sorry, just about the watch thing, I realized that a lot of apps are actually phasing out their watch apps. So things like Otka, they actually removed their watch app, I think 2 weeks ago. So they stopped supporting.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no more watch app on Otka. I mean for Otka.
Okay.
Hang on, does this mean if I like sign into my Monash account, I can't just approve it from my watch anymore?
No, no more. You have to
What?
be on your phone.
Oh, that
Oh.
was an app that I used on.
That is
Yeah, that was the
there,
best
but
thing
wait,
about it.
I only ever replied to a notification. Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, that was
Sorry
the best
about that.
thing of having an watch, I felt.
Yeah.
Signing into your Monash account.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, I don't have a watch, and I feel that pain because yeah, having to reach for your phone every time to approve is no.
Give me 1 second, I'll tell you.
And while Josh does
Yeah.
that, I've just realized
I
the
think-
number one thing I use my watch for is unlocking doors around Monash
Yeah.
and using it. It's fabulous for that. Just walk
Yeah.
up to it and
Yeah.
I think like tap features, being able to like tap to pay or tap to unlock a
Yep,
door,
yep.
things like
yeah,
That's
tapping to pay
fantastic.
for things for sure.
Okay.
That is yeah.
yeah.
So I've just pulled it up. As of the latest version, so June 19th. So you've already got the version on your phone, Michael. So it's already gone. But apparently the push notification with the yes or no will still appear on the watch, as that's just an inbuilt Apple thing. But
Okay.
the actual app itself is gone.
Oh, good. That's then fine. That is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I ever use the app. The app would just be if you wanted to show like current codes for logging into something or
Oh,
whatever.
mine
Yeah.
is forever asking me for current code. Like, press the button in the app for the number shown on screen.
Yeah.
I get that
Right.
all the damn time.
The fact that the actual on-campus things, every time you go to use it, you have to do that is incredibly annoying. I'm so sick of having to sign in to the on-campus machines in
Yeah.
the classes or whatever and having to actually, open up my phone, pull it out, click yes, hit the number.
Yeah. I agree
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very annoying.
Yeah. Which I can definitely I'd almost, because I don't have an Apple Watch, but I would almost buy an Apple Watch just so I don't have to do that anymore. Because it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, it is certainly nice for that.
Mm.
Hey, did anyone else notice for watchOS stuff that they announced like MDN, which is like mobile device management, and VPN support for watches, which sort of suggests to me either more people are using it as a corporate device in some way.
Yeah.
I don't know why that would be exactly, but I thought it was kind of intriguing that that was on their feature list as a sort of small footnote.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what they're actually using it for exactly. They require the watch to actually be on a network or something.
I don't know.
Right.
Or to be able to control it and wipe it if it's got company secrets on it.
Yeah, could it be for, could government positions or things like that actually be using it as well? And just sort of
Yeah, it's a data storage thing. Instead of having the briefcase locked to your wrist, you'll just have your watch that's
your watch.
biometrically attached to you and knows whether it's unlocked or not. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Crazy. All right. Any final thoughts anyone has? Because we're pretty much at time. I think I've exhausted most of the things I had as potential topics for conversation.
Just one. I feel like, have you read the tvOS thing that they introduce FaceTime for the Apple TV or tvOS? That was like
Yeah.
Was
Was that basically using an iPhone or an iPad as a camera and microphone in the Apple TV?
Yeah.
It's weird, but I quite like it in the sense that I don't know how it would work. If someone rings you, I guess what you would do is maybe you're like, oh, well, let's take this on the couch, and you turn on your Apple TV and you transfer the call there or something. I'm trying to imagine what the flow would look like. It seems a bit weird, but I do like this idea of what do they call it? Continuity camera. I'm doing my best at knowing all these marketing names.
Yeah.
Where like I could change my Zoom camera right now, I think, to be my phone if I had it enabled. And I mean, the phone is definitely a better quality camera than the one in my monitor here. It has a wider field of view and probably has better microphones and stuff. So it's compelling, but it may just be one of these features that is available, but if it's too hard to set up and make use, it's not going to be a thing. I don't know how do other people feel about it.
For me, if you have a TV with the webcam, then that app is useful. The continuity thing is pretty good. I would say that's the good thing, but I won't be using, if I think in that way, I wouldn't be using anytime FaceTime. If I talk about the Android TV, how much do you use Google Meet on your TV? Like, I don't think so. People use it that much unless you have a camera on your TV. That's like a weird thing for me, but yeah, like, yeah, it's a good app to have, but I don't think so people using it.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
No.
Got this,
Yeah.
we got this far without you noticing that I changed my background to a lawn with a rocking chair to get off my lawn.
I wouldn't say we didn't notice.
Yeah.
It just felt like a natural place for you. I assumed you just moved out onto your lawn, Josh. And,
Yeah.
you were sitting on a rocking
Step
chair in the
outside.
middle. It didn't seem that crazy to me.
Just your normal.
I wish my garden looked like this. The grass out there at the moment is about as tall as I am.
Yeah, I got a friend that's selling their house and has been dealing with real estate agents, and they got back photos from the real estate agent, and they'd used all kinds of photoshopping in various places, and they're like, I'll never trust an image from a real estate agent again. That lawn behind you looks manicured like it should be in a real estate listing, Josh.
Yeah.
My favorite one of that one is when they've clearly used a wide angle lens to make a room look bigger, except you can see, I think it's the bathroom, but you can see the toilet and it's like double the size that it's supposed to be. And it's just like, that's very obviously photoshopped.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Or if you were to go and look at the property, you're like, where's that photo taken from? And they've obviously stood in the very top corner of the room or something at the furthest point they possibly could, on top of a piece of furniture.
Yeah. In saying that, my sister-in-law recently sold their house as well, and they had the opposite effect where the real estate agent kept taking photos of the bad spots of the house. And they're like,
oh,
why not take it of the beautiful lounge room, but all the stuff that I've moved to the corner of the house and put in a big dirty pile is currently getting a photo because I'm moving out. Like, why would you do that? Why not take it of the shots that we've sort of provided? Yeah. But no, they were just apparently just taking photos of all the bad looking corners, and it's like, why? Get the better corner.
Like, don't you want to sell this house? You get commission.
Yeah. Okay, they sold the house, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's good. I figured as much.
Yeah.
in spite of the real estate agent's photos.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, folks. This has been a fun experience. We often use this as a way of framing what our thinking of things we might cover in the unit in future, but also just discussing things that individually we might have missed. And it's also a fun experience. So
Yeah.
thank you for your time. Been a thoroughly enjoyable couple of hours.
Yeah.
And
Indeed.
enjoy the rest of your afternoons.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Hey guys, take
See
care.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.